Hello. So I want to show a different way to solve these. So in this one, from video 820, reduced row echelon form, this one says find the row echelon and reduced row echelon form. Okay. So the way that Jeff does it is fine, nothing wrong with it. Just going to show you a different way of doing these. So I'm going to want to get my pivots with zeros on the tops and below. So this is my pivot. I want to make these zeros. This is a pivot, make those zeros. This is a pivot, make these zeros. And that's going to be an echelon form. And then once that happens, then it will be simple to make this into reduced row echelon form. So just looking at this first column, I'm going to want a non-zero number and then a 0 and a 0. Now, since this is a polynomial, an equation, whatever I do to one side of the equation, I can do to the other side. Same thing all the way down. And so here, here I'm going to want a 30. And so to do this, I want to multiply this first row by 15. The second row, I'm going to multiply this by a negative 10, and the third row by a negative 6. And so what this would give me is 30, 30, 15, 45. That pink color was not showing up very well. Okay. 10 times 3 will give me a negative 30. And then negative 10 times 1 is negative 10. And then we have a negative 40 and a negative 10. Multiply this bottom row by a negative 6 will give me a negative 30 and negative 12, negative 6, and negative 18. Now, I'm going to be adding row 1 to row 2 to turn that into a 0. And I'm going to add row 1 to row 3 to turn that into a 0. And then I can make this row 1 back into this top form. And so let's also, when I do all of this, I'm going to multiply this by 1 over 15. And notice we don't divide, we're always multiplying. So I'm going to multiply it by 1 over 15, this top row, and you'll see. So this top row is going to go back to normal, this 2, 2, 1, 3. And then 30 minus 30 gives me a 0. 30 minus 10 is 20. 15 minus 40, that's negative 25. 45 minus 10 is going to be 35. And then 30 minus 30 is 0. 30 minus 12 is 18. 15 minus 6 is 9. 45 minus 18, that's I think that's 27. Okay. Now, looking at this, I want to make this 2 into a 0 and this 18 into a 0. But also looking at this, I have a common multiple of 5 in the second row and a common multiple of 9 in the third row. Smaller numbers lend to fewer mistakes. And so let's shrink this down a little. Let's multiply the second row here by a 1 over 5 and this bottom one by a 1 over 9. Okay. Now I'm going to, let's multiply this row here by a negative 2 and this one by a negative 2. This little squiggle mark is called a tilde. This means it is similar to. So that now row 2 added to row 1 is going to give me a 0. And row 2 added to row 3 is going to give me a 0. Okay. So this will give me -4. 4 minus 4 is 0. -5 minus 2 is -7. 7 minus 6 is 1. 0, 4, -5, 7. And then 4 minus 4 is 0. -5 minus 2 is -7. 7 minus 6 is 1. So now I'm going to want this to be a 0 and this to be a 0. And so let's multiply. I just -1 on this row. Actually, -5 on this row, +7 on this row, and a +5 on this row. This will give me okay. So that when I add row 2 to row 1, I'm sorry, row 3 to row 1, that turns this into a 0. So let's add row 3 to row 1. 35 minus 5 is 0. -5 plus 5 is 0. And then 35 minus 35 is 0. 49 minus 5 is 44. Okay. So that if I multiply this by -1 over 20, it's going to turn that into a 1. Multiply this by a 1 over 28, it turns this into a 1. Multiply this row by a 1 over 35, it's going to turn this into a 1. And then now we're going to get the fractions, but we are at the end of the problem here. So this gives me 44 over 28 is going to be 11 over 7. And then 1 over 35 times 35 is 1. And then 1 over 35 times -1/5, this is going to be -1 over 7. Okay. And now this is in reduced row echelon form. This is an augmented matrix. Another way to see this answers the question. But another way to see this says that x1 is 0, x2 is 11 over 7, and x3 is -1 over 7. Thank you very much. Please go to tutoring.